Yeah, thanks. Excited to be here. Richard Taney, PreciseFP. So I run product and strategy on behalf of PreciseFP. And I see in the chat somebody from Montana. Hey, Montana. I'm actually originally from Montana, so I had to call that out. But PreciseFP is a client engagement data gathering platform. We let you create digital branded questionnaires, forms, collect client information, risk profiles, account details, documents, whatever you want. Collect data, do it in a really elegant way, and engage with your client, and then collect that information only once, and then move that information wherever it needs to go. So we have lots and lots of industry name brand names that you can move the data around with, so lots of integration partners. But at the end of the day, we just help streamline the data collection process. We do it in a cyber secure way, client-friendly way, and we free up your time to focus on the client relationship rather than operational tasks.
Wonderful, wonderful. PreciseFP has long been a partner for advisors that are deathly afraid of paper and intimidated by the word NIGO. So if you come from a heavy paper process world, PreciseFP often rises to the top of those conversations when people say they're allergic to paper. With that being said, I'd like to introduce Chad. Chad Heberly here is part of Prospera Investment Advisors. He has a wonderfully detailed story, and I'd love to allow him the floor. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into the process.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Jim. Appreciate the opportunity to speak and talk a little bit about my experience. I'm a recovering banker, so I didn't start my career as an investment advisor. I started, in a commercial banking space and running banks and ran their investment portfolio, and that's, kind of what led to a career in the investment side. And I'm a big believer in planning, and I've been in my career. I've worked for the firm. It's directly as an employee, and I found some good things and bad things about that. And then ran a top 100 franchise of Ameriprise as a COO and an advisor for them, and ran that from about $500 million to $1 billion in assets. And still, found some of the same things, some things I really liked, some things that really didn't align. And so moved out to the independent space. I'm an IAR, independent practice, and an IAR out in Colorado. Been in that role now or in the independent space now for just under a year and a half. And so, there's some of the pain points that Richard talked about that were my pain points. And there were some other things that I really believe in about the client experience and about leading with planning that are really important to me. And so, my kind of path to putting this tech stack together and finding these really complementary systems that both achieve really important goals that are different but both equally important. I'm just excited to kind of share that story and show folks, how I'm using these tools. So appreciate the opportunity.
Wonderful, wonderful. I will give a quick 20-second background on myself, but I'm looking forward to giving you the keys here so you can start steering this ship. I myself, Jim Carlson, I'm a financial planner and I own a registered investment advisory firm here in Massachusetts. And I am a diehard workflowaholic when it comes to financial planning. I have been fortunate to have fpPathfinder in my tech stack since our RIA was born just early 2020. And it was such an integral part of giving me the confidence I needed to go out and lead with financial planning as a service rather than just strictly investment advice or rather than strictly product distribution. To me, it was the opportunity to really level up these conversations, look under all the different rocks as a competent and holistic financial planner, and make sure I had something productive to say after we've uncovered some opportunities. So, with that being said, I'm familiar with both of these. I'm active in the space as an advisor, but also today here just to navigate this conversation and explore the wonderful tools and synergies that Chad's put together with this process. So, without further ado, Chad, I'll let you share your screen, and you can take it away. The setting of the scene here would be as we go ahead and we acknowledge how different clients come to a firm. There's always a different expectation for how they're going to interact, both in the what we'll call the onboarding cycle, as well as a continued client service cycle. Today, we're really going to hone in on that first part of the conversation, and Chad's built a wonderful, wonderful illustration here for that. So, without further ado, I'll give it to you, Chad.
Yeah, thank you. Before I share my screen, I'll just kind of frame to put all of this kind of into perspective. I look at this and I look at our industry and I look at the client experience, and there is really very little time that you get with your client, right? That I get with my client, that we get to dive into these really deep, meaningful conversations. Whether you're running, 4 meetings a year, 2 meetings a year, 12 meetings a year, when you add that up over the course of the year, it's not a lot of actual hours that you get with these folks. So, I think about in terms of how do I use and how do I bring technology into the practice to help drive the client experience, keep our costs low, keep our operation really efficient. Because if we can operate efficiently, we can pass those savings along to our clients and keep from having to raise our fees. Um, and how do we make sure that really drives quality outcomes? Because technology for the sake of technology, cool, flashy, but not always effective, right? So really finding these tools that were super effective to solve the problems that I had. And so when I think about that client experience, I want every client to feel like the conversation is geared around them. And what I've found throughout my career before I came to this independent space was you kind of had you were able to personalize the message that was given to you, right? And so it was really hard to sometimes follow through on that and deliver on that. And when I decided to go independent, I really said, I believe the plan is so important that we're going to drive our entire process off of that plan. So we're not going to take on clients that don't want to go through planning. We're going to be planning first. And so how do we make that a really great client experience? How do we make sure that that is geared to the client and personalized to the client? And how do we make sure that we don't, spend too much time building that out for them, but we don't lose any quality along the way? And so I'll share my screen and kind of let's see. You guys seeing my website here?
Perfect. So just to set the stage there, I almost reference it to when you go and you get a dentist for the first time and you're going to see a new dentist, you just move across the country and they hand you a big, thick stack of forms and they give you a pencil and they say, fill this out and we'll see you on the other side. And it feels like a day in the dentist chair and you haven't even gotten the chair yet. And it's in that context as we go through and think about providing that white glove experience or cementing that relationship to get someone excited to sit in a financial planning chair. We're not dentists, but I understand that people have anxiety about it. Just taking that friction away. And with that, and now that you've got everything up and running, I'll give a kick back to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, spot on, right? Like when I worked for the firm directly, and I'll kind of leave the name out of it. They were a great firm, really did a good job of a lot of parts of the business. To bring a client on was an 11-page paper form that I had to fill out and hand write for them, and then take to someone else who took that information and typed it into a computer to generate paper forms for the client to sign. And that was crazy. And that, I left that firm in 2019, and that's still how it was working there. Went to that larger firm. It was a little more integrated, but it's a pain point, and it's a pain point for everyone. It's a pain point for the client. It's a pain point for me. So when I thought about that client experience, first of all, making sure that we were explaining from the very beginning what that journey was like, and we use a series of 3 meetings, and we really start with the why in this discovery meeting of, give me the basic why of what you're looking for and what your pain points are. And then we can, work through that discovery process. And then that's an opportunity to really understand them as a client, understand where their mind frame is. And then if we move on, we move into a deeper process of full financial planning. And then we kind of cap that off with the recommendations that come out of that process. So, this is kind of our new client journey, that initial discovery meeting, an initial planning meeting, and then a strategy implementation meeting. And we just kind of lay out for the client what that, looks like. We've embedded all of this
Yeah, so let's
into our
pause. We'll double
website,
tap on
right?
this for a second. This is
Yeah.
fascinating right here. When I look at this, I see a couple different things. One, I see that you've taken and templated the entire client onboarding experience. So when they come, before they pick up the phone, am I going to get pain funneled? Is he going to stick an application in front of me? What is this whole dog and pony show of getting a feel for the advisor? They know on your website at 11:30 at night when they're up thinking about whatever financial problem they have as they come across you, they're able to do this due diligence on their own end. They're able to educate themselves about what the experience is. And they're also able, if you look through closely here, they're able to double tap on a couple of these questionnaires and follow up for more. So I'll kick it back to you. But this illustration right here in the page we're looking at, it's actually part of a customizable template from fpPathfinder here. So as we start thinking about how do these tools plug and play, we'll notice that it's private labeled directly to Chad's firm. There is specific copy that he's been able to update and tailor to his client experience. And then furthermore, it's embedded to deeper engagements between both PreciseFP as well as fpPathfinder here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of the theme is you'll see how I've kind of tried to embed these systems into my website. Because one of the challenges that I've found in this independent space is you send people to a lot of platforms and that gets confusing and that deteriorates that client experience, right? And so one of the value propositions of big firms is, hey, we give your client single access and once they're in, they get everything. So, how do you create some of that efficiency and simplicity given that you're really trying to connect a bunch of forms and so or a bunch of systems together to create these processes. So this is really just a displayed PDF where they can download it and all the links work. They can keep a copy for themselves, and then we really guide them to and we have multiple emails and other things that really guide folks to this initial discovery form. And so, not only can they learn about that process, but if they're really so inclined, they can just get started on their own. If they've been sent to us either by referral or we've done some outreach marketing or the marketing firm we use to book clients has generated that lead for us, then they're kind of setting up for this discovery form. But anyone can also just self-serve through this entire process right through our website. And we try to make sure that we've got our resources linked up there and links to everything they would need. And so if somebody says, hey, I want to do the get started on this, they can pop over to our initial discovery form. We're going to talk about Spider-Man today. Yes, Spider-Man is my client. No, not Tobey Maguire, actual Spider. But brings them onto a little welcome message that we've customized. This is actually what we're looking at here is actually a PreciseFP form that I've embedded into my website using the iframe coding that's basically readily available to use from them, and just color matched it so that all of our branding is there and our messaging is there. So they
No
go through.
separate logins.
Oh yeah.
They're on. Sorry, just to interject. So no separate logins. You're on your site. You're clicking through like I'm going from About Us, and I'm
Yep.
saying, I'm feeling a little bit ambitious. Let's keep it moving. By
Yep.
clicking on the next one, it's actually going to take you embedded to the form, but you're still on his site. So when you look at the
Yep.
bottom, it's going to say Chad's website. In
Never
that, you
left
can
my
go
website.
ahead. You never left it.
Yep, never left my website. But filling out this form, once and the initial form is pretty basic. This is not a secure form. Once we get into further processes like our financial planning, that's a secure form. So they log into it, but they still never leave our website. They stay right on our website. They log into it on our website because that form does ask for more private information. In this initial discovery form, we're using one of the initial onboarding templates from PreciseFP to keep the information very generic, non-threatening, not too personal for the client that's coming on board and just kind of getting started. But it does some things for us. Captures some of that basic information that we want to get into our CRM. Gives us an idea of where they're at in terms of their general kind of retirement planning or financial process, and if they're retired or not, and when they plan on that, ranges of what they're saving, and just a few super high level basic, what are you trying to accomplish, check boxes, and then some really basic household information. So again, non-threatening, not too specific, non-private, so they don't have to log into anything. Just give us a few ranges of information, and we'll take that. Now,
Can you go
here's
back
what,
one? Can you go
yeah,
back
yeah,
one slide, just one
absolutely.
quick? I just want to put some of my own commentary on the side. One of the things I always hear when you have a client or a prospect come in on an introduction call, they want one specific answer on one specific question. And oftentimes, when you're trying to get to someone to understand the value of a financial planning relationship, without putting your fingers up and saying you're holistic quarterback of the relationship, everyone's heard that, at least everyone on this call. If we want to be intellectually honest, we want to start people thinking and play a little bit of chess with their goals. If you can have someone identify something they want to take care of in the next 6 months, that gives you immediate actionable opportunity to identify and start pairing that goal towards moving towards, becoming a client. Secondly, we say once we figure that out, the next domino to fall is coming at you quick, and that's going to be within that 1 to 5 years. And then thirdly, oh, you'd like to retire. Well, that's what we do for a living. We're financial planners. We help people with retirement planning. But rather than say, hey, I've got this specific question about retirement, you bring that time preference from, I'm looking for an immediate answer and don't see value in a long-term relationship, or I'm looking for a long-term relationship but don't see an immediate need for it. Just that three-question framing in the middle really allows a productive conversation. So when they do come to you, you can prioritize, do we need to be onboarded? Is this a time-sensitive thing? Or can we take our time with relationship building and less time-sensitive nature?
And if I could just throw in a technology comment for the people watching. So Chad actually, this is a native PreciseFP form that he took and created an iframe version of it and then embedded it in his platform. It's super easy to do in the platform. So you can actually, the iframe version, he probably had to do a little bit of, did you do some development, I'm assuming, to embed this into your site, Chad, or did you?
I really didn't. I mean,
Yeah.
I took your HTML code. All I really had to do on my website side was just make sure that it was sized sufficiently to let enough of that form show. But
And just dropped it in.
I'm reasonably techie. I'm far from a developer.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they're just for the folks watching, it's a native PreciseFP functionality. You can publish any form in like an iframe, a URL, a button, a banner, and then easily just embed it or put it out in social media or put it on your website. It takes 5 minutes to do. So it's a really easy thing to actually put it directly into your website.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All of this is like, like I said, you don't have to be a developer. You just need, little bit of ability to overcome the fear of what if I mess this up, right? But no, it's not. It's very easy, very easy. Both of these things are super easy to kind of embed into here. So I didn't do anything too fancy. So this helps us capture some basic information that we want to feed, like Richard was saying, you want to feed this to multiple systems so that number one, the client doesn't have to answer the same question or provide the same information numerous times because that's annoying as a client. And on the other side, I don't want to spend my time retyping information. I don't want to have to pay someone to sit around retyping information. So how can we capture that and how can we get it out to these other systems? And when we get through this client process, I'll kind of show you that side of things. But they're helping us capture some basic information. And then what we've done next is I couldn't necessarily just directly embed fpPathfinder questionnaires into the PreciseFP system directly, but what I could do was create some buttons and some explanation that could be embedded into there. And so that's kind of when we get to this, there's just, hey, we've got a couple of questionnaires. This is teed up from the very first communication on this page. From every communication we send, we're going to ask you to fill out this forms and at the end of that form, go through a couple of questionnaires before you submit the information. And so this is kind of where the other systems come in. So they're just buttons. The Your Story, Your Strategy questionnaire is an fpPathfinder template that we've just rebranded. This is the issues to consider as a new client template. I haven't really made any changes to this other than changing some of the branding, the name to Your Story, Your Strategy to align to what our communications are, and to make sure that the color palette and our branding was in there, and then customizing some of this communication around here. And same thing, like letting folks know there's no sensitive information like that, right? This is really non-intrusive. This just helps us get a clear picture of your financial world. And so they can really easily and quickly hop through, answer some questions, yes or no. They're free to add some notes to that if they want to. but it's really easy and unintrusive. And so, from an initial client experience process, how I view this is PreciseFP is helping me capture the data that I need efficiently and effectively so that we don't spend our first conversation with them reading me letters and me typing them in, and that's just a waste of everybody's time. What the fpPathfinder tool is doing is it's helping me hone in on the conversation that we should have, right? And so one without the other is only somewhat effective is kind of what I found, and this is how I ended up putting them together. Is I was actually first introduced to this fpPathfinder tool through my financial planning platform, which I utilize Income Lab. And what I found is this is really effective at helping you immediately engage with someone about the things that matter to them because they've told you exactly what to talk to them about and exactly what they're not really worried about. So over time, we might need to touch on some of these other things, but what this tool does is it lets me hone in on the most important conversations to have immediately so that we can engage in what's meaningful to them and make sure that meeting really feels personalized to their concerns and doesn't feel like a commercial for all the things that we could do for them if we were their planner, right? And so that's really how this tool drove the conversation. And what I found was it was so effective at driving that conversation that we ran out of time and I hadn't done the admin work of getting their name and their phone number and their email and their stuff, like the basic things that I needed to get in my CRM. And so this was driving these really great conversations. And then I was almost scrambling to get that admin stuff done before they left, and that felt clunky. Um, and so sometimes I was following up and saying, hey, you know what? I forgot to ask you for this piece of information. And that's embarrassing. You don't want to, you had a great conversation and then you forgot to get, some piece of information that's really necessary for just administrative functionality to proceed. So um, through that process, I started to say, how do I capture that data better? How do I make giving me documents really easy for people without having to go to another platform, another place to go? And so that's really the path that drove me to put these two things together. Was this is really effective at guiding the conversation, and so how do I get both of those things at the same time? So they go through this, they go through these sections. Super easy, super basic yes, nos. They don't have to answer them all. They pop through. They can skip anything that they just don't care about. And then they submit these responses. And it just lets them know, hey, your responses were submitted, right?
One of the things I always think about with these forms too is when, particularly on this new issues to consider as a client, if you have you want to do me a favor and click on that information button just on that
Oh, yeah.
top one. So I always like to frame this, and if you work with a team, usually there are senior advisors, junior advisors, and paraplanners. And one great way I have always found with those that have not gone through a full communion in a market cycle, those individuals that are in their baptism by fire stage. There's so many questions that those individuals want to ask as they're going through, making sure that they're asking the right questions, make sure that they're covering the opportunities. But what happens when you uncover an opportunity that you haven't come across before and you're like, oh, I asked a question, I uncovered an opportunity, now I don't know where to go. I just want to reiterate this really for the junior advisors or for those that are still, getting their at-bats with talking to clients and having client-facing conversations. This little information spot on all of these, it's available in the interactive checklists. You can hide it if you choose to update those. And they're also available on each of the paper checklists as well. These are great follow-up talking points. If someone says yes, you're able to say, hey, we've got a whole process for that. We can go ahead and we can review your property and casualty insurance and consider what issues you should consider when you're reviewing your health insurance and your insurance policies. You don't have to be the expert on insurance. You don't have to have the life insurance app backed up ready for them. This is just a way to make sure that you're identifying the opportunities, you're acknowledging those things once they're identified, and you're putting it on the list to work through in a long-term relationship. So I feel this is a great, great way for junior advisors as they're working through these navigating conversations to lean into these guardrails, as I call them, ad nauseum.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I left all that stuff on because again, like I want to be a resource to folks. I may or may not solve every problem, but I want to give them the resources they need to make an informed and educated decision, and I want to be able to support that. And that's a big part of fpPathfinder. So, you get some of these guides out there that they can click to and have access to on their own if they're so inclined to just do that, right? So not necessarily being every resource, but making sure I'm trying to provide a lot of resources for them, for sure. Yeah, so we also have a risk assessment we ask them to complete. Works kind of the same way, pops them out to our, risk assessment website. I, I try to minimize the number of times they leave my website. Some of these I can't help. I have to have this on a separate URL. So a few of those things, but for the most part, really trying to help keep that clean and keep it inside one window so that they can go through there. And I mentioned earlier document uploads. My RIA provides a document upload system, but it's separate from every other system. So it's another login, it's another password for the client. Kind of clunky. That was one of the boxes that a system had to check for me, was how do I get secure upload and make it simple for my clients? And so as part of that, PreciseFP provides that. So I've got that as part of the form. And then we also have just a standalone upload page where we're just same thing. We've just embedded the document upload portal for PreciseFP directly, so that at any time people can go upload things they need. But we've embedded it in every one of our forms so that they can share that information easily and securely. And then we can just grab that from the PreciseFP website. So they get into the end of that and it says, hey, if you're beginning this, through this form, if you're basically self-guiding and you've not scheduled, you can click this button and you can pop open our scheduling page. It's also on this same website, so they don't leave our website. They just go to another page that pops in a tab. And then once they finish that, they can submit this, and this will then do a couple of things for us, right? So that I'll pause on the client side and then pop over to what happens after they hit submit and finish and submit that form on our website.
This is all done, and yeah, just to reiterate, this is all on the other side. You don't even know this person. Well, you may if you're actively looking at the analytics of your website. But the idea, this is available to self-serve. Anyone
Yeah.
on the internet at any time can come in, educate themselves about the firm, can begin to kind of kick the tires and get to know you. You don't have to go have a 15-minute cup of coffee with them. You don't have to chase them down for the discovery meeting. This is all on their time. This is available to them. You're more than welcome to, once you have these sales funnels and these processes put in place, if it makes dedicating some ad spend there to have more people get eyeballs on this and help themselves through the self-service prospecting funnel, those are all opportunities for each advisor as they look through how they'd like to go to market and bring new clients on. But the idea that if you build it, they will come, you really are able to take some of your time that you'd normally have cold calling, going through some of these education, going through some of these soft feeling. So, hey, by the time I figure out what you do, can we have a meeting? They've been able to really help themselves to that education process in the meantime. So I think having these available for the average person, whether you know that person specifically yet or not, available for them to self-serve is increasingly a way that advisors are being surfaced as potential advisors to these clients, and also how these clients are doing their due diligence on advisors.
Yeah, I'm not a big paper person, but we use very similar processes. We use the same, iframe embedded PreciseFP forms, the same fpPathfinder questionnaires, just different templates for our client review meetings. Those are private pages that you can't just publicly access. You can only access those if we send you the link to them. But as part of that review process, we're really pushing people back to this website as well. And so one of the things that we always offer folks is, if you're not comfortable doing this on your own, we're happy to schedule a time and sit down with you and do this, or do this over, a Teams meeting or a Zoom or whatever the system might be. But we're happy to go through this with you. It's not like hey, if you're not techie, you can't work with us. We're just trying to really make it as smooth as possible, because so much more stuff is being done through digital channels now, that we just want to make that as easy as possible. So I just want to, make it clear, like, we'll walk a client through this and we'll sit there and say, spell your name. Okay, give me your social. We'll type it in. But we're basically doing it using these same systems. So just trying to make that admin work that really is necessary and drives a lot of the direction, the conversation, and the process, as simple as possible. And if they, if they're inclined to do a lot of that themselves, then when we get together, we're just diving into the really important stuff, and all that admin stuff is checked off. We've got what we need. We've got the information. We know exactly what to talk about. Let's really dive in and get to work here.
Oh, what a crescendo. All right, so perfect. That is so it. Now they come in, you've got this. Let's say it happens in the middle of a snowstorm in the middle of the night. And now you wake up, you check your phone, you say, "Oh, the kids are off today. I'm going to be
Yep.
working from home." You're going to, in theory, have a notification to you. When you
Yep.
were alerted of this process, walk us through what that looks like from your end of things.
Yep. So first, PreciseFP pops over an email and says, "Hey, this initial discovery meeting was accessed, and in this case, I just created a fast one, but whatever name they put in, it would pop over and say, 'Hey, this person did that.' So you get this notification from PreciseFP that you've got something in there, and you can pop out to that system. And so when I go out to PreciseFP on our end, I'll see these engagements, and sure enough, there is Spider-Man's initial discovery meeting, and so I can see what he did. And then when I click on that, it pops me open to Spider-Man's details. So you can see all this history and timeline of what's happened there, some basic information, whether they've created a password so that they can go in and securely add additional information or not. If there's a co-client, you would see that. And then some of the quality of what they've done and how much data they've provided relative to what we're really looking for. And so when we come in here, it's super easy for us to come in and export this data directly into our CRM. I use Redtail for that. So I push this directly over into Redtail, and basically PreciseFP populates all those fields that were captured in PreciseFP, get populated into Redtail on one push of a button. So now I'm not typing any information into Redtail. I'm just pulling that over. As we have multiple meetings, or we go through that financial planning process and they add more and more detail into the PreciseFP system, same thing, I just pop over and export that data to my Redtail system, and it just adds to those records. And again, it's even if I had to sit with the client and capture that information and type it in, I'm only typing it once. I'm not typing it into this and then popping over to my other system and typing it in again. I'm really trying to keep that efficient. So this pushes straight over into our CRM system. And then on the other side of this, fpPathfinder sends an email, and attached to that email is that questionnaire in a PDF. So I can save that document wherever I want to. If I prefer to look at paper, if I prefer to look at things that are formatted, I throw these into. I'm a OneNote user, so all of my clients have their own little OneNote. So I do put these PDFs into OneNote, but you can see what was answered, unanswered, yes, no's, nicely formatted. All in the branding is there. So if I'm a paper person, I've got my paper. It summarizes all the yes, no's in here as well. And then I also have the fpPathfinder Redtail integration turned on. So as I come into Redtail, Spider-Man was created because PreciseFP created the record. And then when this fpPathfinder document was submitted, when I got that email, that information also came directly over into my Redtail CRM. So it generated a task for me to follow up on and put those notes in there about what was answered yes. And it also populated the entire thing into the notes directly. So again, what were the questions that were answered? Yes, there they are. So you want to know what that first conversation should focus on? The client just told me what to focus my first agenda around, are these things that they answered yes to and have the most concern about. Doesn't mean we won't hit on some of these other things, or I might not ask them, how come that isn't a consideration for you? But they're basically telling me what their most concerning issues are and where I should focus that conversation to make sure that that feels like the meeting is about them and not about me and my process, right? Because I'm a process guy as well, and I like to follow the process. But if you're not careful, that can feel cold and impersonal. Sorry. So, again, these combination of tools just allow me to make this feel very smooth, make it feel very efficient, and make it feel very personalized to the client. Um, and then PreciseFP pushes that data directly over into my planning platform as well. So I can populate that system from PreciseFP as well, and pull updates and all of that. So it's just like I've got to capture that information once. If I do it with the client, I'm typing it once and pushing it to two or three other systems. If they put it in themselves, I never even touched most of that data, and they'll populate most of these systems for me, faster than I can do it. And then when we get together, we're just talking about what's important to them. And in every case, it's about them having a good experience. It's about the conversation being geared to them. And it's about, making sure that the decisions we make are in alignment with their why. Um, and keeping that, kind of in focus throughout the whole process. So that's kind of how I've used these tools to try to bring them together and focus them on the client.
So just to summarize this, I get super excited about these things, but to classify them into like three or four buckets. Time savings. You're not having to fat finger this, or you, an administrator, is not having to physically type these in. Two, improved consistency. Is it Timmy or Jimmy? Is that a T or a J? Did you mix that up? And was there any sort of things lost in the game of telephone tag as you were
Right.
coordinating these details? Stronger client engagement. I would have never known that you were a veteran and you had X, Y, or Z benefits had we not gone through this deeper engaged questionnaire that you just literally had to button smash through on the other side. We played center field and picked up all the planning opportunities and knew what to do with them, but we had to uncover them. So this opportunity of self-service uncovering was huge. And then thirdly, once we got all that information and these engagements were cemented, all of a sudden we can turn around and we can port these to the different tools that we need, whether it's a financial planning software to start doing some distribution analysis, maybe even some accumulation analysis, or if it's going directly into an investment custodian or something like that, where we're looking to directly onboard assets and continue the relationship and deepen it. All that's already on a T, because you don't have to then go back and say, what's the social? Let me carry the two and get that from system A to system B. So great job, Chad. I'm curious to hear how your feedback has been from prospects and clients now that you've rolled this out to the wild, if you would.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in general, I think the feedback's been extremely positive. I've got some clients that aren't super tech savvy. They kind of ignore it. And so, in communication to folks, like, I always try to make sure they're comfortable. Like, hey, I have this available to use if you want to use it. I tailor that message a little bit based on the audience. So those clients that I know are not super tech savvy, I'm super soft about, hey, let's get together before your meeting. I want to go through a few questions and make sure that I get an agenda put together. So it's not a hard and fast, everybody gets this link, you do this link. If you don't do the link, we don't get the information. So you got to tailor it a little bit to your audience. But the feeling of this being personal has been phenomenally positive. And a little anecdotal story, I was referred by a longtime client, referred a friend of his who lives out of state. I've never met the guy. And he said, okay, my company sold. I got a pretty good chunk of money from the company, and so I want to talk to you about this. I explained to him, here's kind of the process. Let's start with this. He went through every step of that client onboarding process, and it took us almost a month to get through that, between him getting the information and us doing it and getting back. It took 3.5 weeks or so to go through that process. And at the end, he said, this is super impressive. Like, I'm really impressed by how thorough this was. And I was looking at just moving this stuff to you, but I'm just going to move it all to you. And so that was a $2 to $3 million referral that ended up sending 6.5 million our way. So, and it was really because we were thorough, and I feel like I'm thorough, but I can't remember all those questions in every time. And so really taking him through and letting him on his time go, yeah, that's important to me. No, that's not. Let's not talk about this. Really made him feel like it was a very personalized experience. And so he recently sent me another referral. And in the first meeting with that person, I walked them through what our process looks like, and sent him the link. And he's only so far done the discovery meeting. We had the follow up from when he did this, and the conversation started with, "Hey, I see that you've said this matters to you. Like, I know there's a bunch of stuff we should talk about, but that seems like a pretty high priority. Can you tell me about that a little bit?" And he immediately just really opened up about, okay, this is what's going on and this is why I need help. And we got to the end of that initial conversation. And I said, here's what it looks like to move forward. There's, some additional information we'll ask you to complete through our site. There's some additional, more in-depth yes, no questionnaires. They're just more questions that go a little deeper into some of these topics. And if you're interested in moving forward, then that would be the next step. And he said, yes, I definitely want to move forward. And he said, I've been interviewing advisors, and you're the first one that started out with me. Instead of you telling me what you can do, you started out asking me what's important to me. And that, basically drove his decision, because the conversation was not my commercial about how I can help you. It was, you told me this is important. Let's talk about that. And then I can tell you how our team and our partners help address those issues for our clients. And so it just kind of flipped that conversation. So it's been, really effective in that regard. Certainly took, kind of overcoming some fear of, my whole career has been driven a lot by corporate quotas and some of that. So it's like, hey, if I don't land this by the end of the quarter, I'm in trouble. I better hit my quota. I better do this. And, I don't have that at this point in my career. I'm able to really say, this is what we do, and this is the kind of client we work with. And if this is for you, then let's have a conversation and let's go through this process. And so very true to this process. And that was pretty scary to do at first, coming from, 20 years of, hey, do you want to do business? Great. Let's see if we can get to business. And now let's fill in the gaps along the way to, this is the process, and we lead with planning, and we don't take your assets if we don't understand why we're implementing the strategy we're implementing. And so a little scary on that regard. Definitely some tweaking of some of these processes, especially as it related to clients that get booked through online lead sources, where it's a little less personal. So we've made some adjustments along the way to kind of do this, and certainly learned that, again, you got to kind of tailor this process to the audience and meet the client where they're at. And so sometimes you're using the system that they could use, but you're the one typing it, and that's okay too, because in general, we're still getting quality, a great experience, and efficiency. And those are the things that I want my technology to do. So mission accomplished. And I think these two tools for me accomplish these really important missions of get the data, get it right. Every time you touch it's a chance to mess it up. So the fewer times we have to touch it, the better. So we get the data and we get it right. And then we hone in that conversation to what's important to them. And I think that's, working out really well for us.
Hey, Chad, just a quick observation, then a question for you. So observation, when I look at all this and kind of step back from it, ultimately, executing technology really, really well builds trust with the client, which is just gold. I mean, that's just so important to build that trust. But a quick question. This is amazing how you got all this to work together in such a seamless process. It's absolutely amazing. I love to see it. Can you speak to just a little bit, like, what was the effort? How long did it take you? What was the effort of actually getting all this stuff rolled out?
I mean, quite honestly, you spend a morning and you got the system up, right? Like, it's really not that hard to get these systems up. I just kind of dive in and spend a morning in PreciseFP and put all my messaging and put all my branding and put all of that. Then, a few iterations, right? So it's like I put this out there, and then I test it and go, oh, that feels weird. Or I'd have, some of my friends and trusted clients kind of test some of these for me and say, hey, go through this. Tell me what it feels like. Tell me what doesn't work. And so there's been a few iterations of this, but I would say either one of these systems you can have fully operational in a morning. And then it's a matter of really, figuring out the flow to make everything work the way you want it to work. And that's kind of a never ending process for me a little bit. But I would say in general, both systems are pretty easy to stand up and personalize and basically have going in half a day, if that.
Yeah, awesome. Jim, any comments on that?
No, not too specifically, but I think the reiterating the point of the tools playing together have led to an uptick in referrals. And if you were to really clarify that, I think the takeaway is that the Supreme client experience and their education on what the process looks like gives them a level of comfort. The second part of that is when they complete that and go through the other side of it, you're not talking about the weather on that first meeting. You're able to hit the ground with some really productive, actionable opportunities and really have a real conversation about what's important to them. And for so many people that have experienced different types of introductory conversations, if someone's completed this level of due diligence on your firm and you've got that level of information about them, between that level of experience, between you can then establish a level of competency to them. That's the sweet spot when you think about getting more referrals, is they want to be happy with how they were served and they want to know that you're doing a right job. Those are really the two check the boxes that they need to check before they feel comfortable referring anymore. So hearing Chad's process, hearing how that's highlighted, and out the other end of that funnel, knowing the uptick in referrals, those are the KPIs that we're interested in as we start thinking about putting our tech stack together. What comes out the other side? Is it worth it for us? Is it worth it for the client? Hearing that they've had satisfied engagements with it, hearing that you've streamlined and cut a lot of your administrative time working through the case, whether it may or may not come over the goal line. And then thirdly, on the other side of that, really being able to hammer that home with future referrals down the line. That's all just evidence that it's working and it's resonating with the client base.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't want any black boxes. I don't want any, hey, we're magic in here, because we're not magic, right? We're following a process and we're making we're providing advice based on the information that we have. So the more complete that information, the better the quality of advice we can offer. And we want that to be extremely transparent. So, I use some other systems for note taking and some of that, and transparency around the meeting notes for my clients. And so I think that's super important. And so I'll quickly try to hit a couple of these questions that are on here. And so the first question is, do they have to sign into these? I'll pop back to my website here. Do they have to sign in order to fill out these forms? And the answer is both yes and no, right? So when they first come in, let me pop over to our journey and I'll try to answer this kind of live. When they first come in and start this client journey, this initial discovery meeting, that is a public link. Anybody can fill it out with no login at all, because we're not capturing any private information. It's very generic information. So it just says, hey, greetings, welcome. Here's what we believe. Here's how this works. Click next to continue. They fill out some information. They're not providing anything that requires security. So this is not a secure form. You just fill out the information. If they upload these documents, that uploads directly to the PreciseFP secure system. So they don't have to sign in to supply documents to us. It just directly uploads to that system. And then none of the other systems, the fpPathfinder questionnaires, they're not asking for private information. So all of this initial discovery meeting, that's completely available and open to the public. Now, if they proceed to the next part of this journey, where we are going to capture really private information, which is this initial planning meeting form, they will have to create a password in order to get started, because in this one, they are going to provide us with private information. And so this form is a secure form. They put in their email address, they click next and sign in. If they don't have an account, they can sign up here. But it's all embedded right inside our website through the PreciseFP iframe coding that we get from them, just a copy paste into our website side of things on the back end. So the initial forms are not secure, very easy, very accessible, very non-intrusive. And then once we get into planning forms and client review forms, those are secure. They do need to log in, because we're displaying and capturing private information on those. What you see here, I have not gone in and spent a lot of time to modify the templates. So when you're looking at the fpPathfinder questionnaires, really the only customization that I did was the stuff that's really easily available in the settings, setting the color combination, uploading my logo, replacing the generic messaging, with some custom messaging in there. Nothing really crazy, nothing that was very time consuming. The core of everything that you saw today is just the templates that these companies make available. So same on this PreciseFP. I just went into the settings, uploaded my logo, adjusted the colors, put in some custom communication, but nothing too crazy. This is all very much available, ready to, turnkey templates that I just personalized. So I wouldn't call what I did customizing really much of anything. I just personalized it to Prospera, to my brand, to my company, to make sure that it aligned with everything else we were doing. And
Great.
then in that client review process, we kind of go the other way. And so there are other forms that are PreciseFP forms that are structured the exact same way as the initial planning and discovery meeting form, but they're private. You can't find a link on the website to them. They are pages on our website, but they are hidden from the public. And so when we do our client review meetings, we send out through email and text requests to meet with folks. Most of our clients have kind of gotten used to that process over the last few years, because I've been doing online scheduling now for about 5 years. And the new clients that come on, that's just kind of like, hey, this is how we do things. So they're very used to, hey, I got the message, we need to set an appointment. They click on a link, they go through and they schedule on our scheduling site, which is also embedded into this in another place. And then that system fires off automated emails to say, okay, take a look at your existing information. And so this is, from a client review standpoint, this is kind of how we close the loop, is the information that we've got, we can now put back in front of them using PreciseFP and ask them to validate and update. And so that admin work that in my last firm, we paid someone to schedule clients and then to try to get them to update the information ahead of the meeting. And that was very time consuming and cumbersome. And you might be able to catch them to get a meeting on the books, but they don't have time to give you that information, or they don't know it right there. And so then you're get this clunky back and forth trying to capture, and make sure you've got the most up-to-date information ahead of the meeting. The PreciseFP system really solves that for us, because we basically push their information and say, hey, take a look at your information. If you see anything that needs updated, please update it. When they do that, we get that same notification that, hey, this form's been accessed or updated, and we can go back into PreciseFP. We can push those updates back over into our Redtail system. We can pull those updates back into our Income Lab system, and really, within just literally a minute or two, have all that information updated and populated throughout our systems, so that when we're doing meeting prep, we're dialed in with the right information. Those meeting reviews also provided another fpPathfinder client review questionnaire checklist, so that, hey, if there's anything that we haven't talked about or that's important to you, please check yes or no. And again, for client review meetings, they're making sure that our admin work is dialed in when they come in, so that we don't have to spend any of that meeting asking them to, update the spelling of something, or their mailing address or some silly thing like that. That's done. When they come into that meeting, the agenda, I have certain things I need to hit on because I'm doing a review meeting, but the rest of that meeting is really all around the things that they said were important. So when we go into that meeting, I really open it up with, hey, I appreciate that you reviewed that information. We've got this update done for you, and we'll send that for e-sign when you're done here. It looks like, you checked yes on this, and that's not something that we've talked about before. So I want to make sure we dive into that in this meeting. Here's the things that I've got on my agenda. Is there anything else that you want to talk about today? And then in the first, 30 seconds, minute of that meeting, they feel heard. They know that their concern is going to get addressed. They understand I've got some things I have to go through, but they know from the first minute in the door, we're going to talk about the things that you're worried about, so that this meeting is definitely about you. So that's kind of how we close this circle on the client review side.
Great. So I'm just going to run through a couple questions here as we're getting low on time.
Yeah.
There's been some great questions in the chat. One of them, namely, if an outsource appears to be outstanding, my own bias, they both are. But if someone's broker dealer has yet to approve these products, what does that look like? Reach out to either us at fpPathfinder or reach out to PreciseFP directly. We'd love to get in touch with you, and we might even like to talk to your compliance department. There's a framework that goes through all of these approvals. We'd like to know just what the friction is at your broker dealer and how we can help facilitate integrating these tools to your client experiences. So with that being said, feel free to reach out specifically. We'd like to learn more about your situation to help with that. On the other side of that, Richard, you get a ton of good data to PreciseFP. We want to push it out to the most applicable spots possible. Talk to us about some of your integration partners, and namely eMoney. That's come up a couple times today. How do you guys work with partners once you've got the data?
Yeah, I saw that. Lots and lots of integration. Actually, I'm going to post in the chat two links. One is to our YouTube channel. So anybody who wants to go look up anything, I know there's a question on Smart Office. I think we have a webinar out there. You can go see how the Smart Office integration works. And then the other one is to our partners page. So that'll bring you to a tiled page of all of our integration partners. You can click on any one of those. We actually publish all of our mapping tables. So you can just click on those. We'll explain how it is, how it works. You can drill into any of them. eMoney, we have a really deep and wide integration with eMoney. So just know with any of our integration partners, we will pretty much pass any data bidirectionally that is supported through their APIs. So we will push and pull any piece of data that we possibly can into those integrations. So lots and lots of integrations.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I want to thank you both today. Are there any more questions in the chat? I think we got through. Oh, the one thing that did come up in terms of proposals. Now, I can speak for myself, having used the tools and integrated this. I don't always know the person coming through the top of this funnel and what they're going to need coming out the bottom side of it. So while we have templates, while we have investment proposals for if it's an investment policy statement, or we have a proposal to walk someone through what their investments would look like, typically at that point, we have a set of client agreements and we have a set of ways that our program operates. Some people work on subscription-based financial planning. Some people do flat fee. Some people will have a mix between commissionable products and AUM. I don't have a dog in the fight for this particular webinar, but I would say that each implementation set is different. And because each implementation set is different, I would expect that those proposals would be slightly different on each of those. Really, the main focus for today is making sure that we've got the information we need to put the right proposal in front of them so they sign it. So I want to thank you all today for your time, your questions. They've been wonderful. If anyone has any questions about PreciseFP, about fpPathfinder, against Chad's wonderful process that he's integrated the two with, we'd encourage you to reach back out. We look to be doing more and more of these best practices on a going forward basis with different technology partners. We're just looking to make sausage, see how the sausage is made and make better financial planning for all of us. So no matter where you are in your practice, no matter where you are in your stage of growth, if you are a junior advisor looking for the right follow-up question to ask once you finally get someone on the phone, if you're a seasoned advisor looking to scale up your staff, or if you're looking to break away and just want to run away from paper and NIGOs, I think throughout the conversation today, we've really highlighted the different facets of how we can integrate these tools into our practice to both level up the client experience and make ourselves more competent planners on the other side. So again, I thank you all for your time today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks, Richard, and thanks,
Thanks
Chad.
for having me.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.